In this class, we're going to look at image maps. Image maps allow portions of an image on a web page to be marked out as hotspots. And then those hotspots can in turn become links to other web pages. So instead of having just hypertext links on your pages, where you click on some text and go to a new page, you could click on a part of an image and go to a new page. So here we have an aerial photograph of a part of Cork, taken from a plane on its way into the airport. If we were a small bit earlier, we might have caught a shot of the Bishopstown campus in CIT, but you can just make out our Crawford Art College cousins down there, next to the cathedral. Now, an image map would allow us to specify certain portions of this image. So we could say that if you click on this top left portion up here, you'd go to residential.html. If you clicked on the circle in the middle there, you could go to a web page called listed.html. If you clicked on the area on the right, you'd go to sold.html. And if you clicked on the irregular shape there on the left, you could go to docklands.html. So an image map makes portions of an image clickable-onable, for want of a better word. And clicking on a different part of the image could take you to a different web page. So image maps are great for navigation bars. A navigation bar is a graphical summary of your website. So you might have 4 or 5 main sections, and you could represent those with images or icons or photographs, and then the user could click on those and go to the appropriate page. So it makes the navigation more interesting than just clicking on text. Now there are 2 kinds of image maps. There are server-side image maps and client-side image maps. With the server-side image map, what happens is that when the user clicks on the image, the browser figures out what point on the image they clicked on, and it sends those coordinates back to the web server. The web server looks at those coordinates to see if they fall into a hotspot. And then if they do, the web server will provide the page that corresponds to that hotspot. So the browser would send to the server information that the user clicked on, say, location 5070. The server would look up 5070 and decide that that corresponded to a particular hotspot, and the page associated with that hotspot was sold.html. And so then the server sends sold.html to the browser. Now with the server-side image map, the client or the browser doesn't have to do any thinking at all. It just says, someone clicked here, tell me what to do with that. And all of the intelligence is in the server. So the server figures out what to do with that information, what page that equates to, and then sends the page. Client-side image maps are very different. With client-side image maps, all of the intelligence is in the browser. The browser gets from the HTML file all of the information it needs to make the decision itself about what a particular click on the image means. So with a client-side image map, the user clicks on the image at, say, location 5070, and then the browser knows that that corresponds to sold.html. So it will then, off its own bat, request sold.html from the server. So client-side image maps put all of the intelligence and all of the decision making inside in the browser. Now there was a time when that kind of decision making was too much for most browsers. So in the early days you could only use server-side image maps. But as browsers became more intelligent, client-side image maps became more usual. And they're the norm now. So let's look here at this navigation bar. This is going to be the navigation bar for Cafe Modo. And there are 4 main sections of the Cafe Modo website. There's general information about Cafe Modo. There's a section on the cocktails, a section on the coffee, and a section on the food. And depending on where the user clicks in the navigation bar, they'll go to one of 4 pages. Clicking on cocktails takes the user to cocktails.html. Clicking on the Cafe Modo circle takes the user to modo.html. Clicking on the coffee area will go to coffee.html, and clicking on food will go to food.html. Now on the image map here, we've shown rulers so that we can see the locations of particular points in the image. Most image editing applications would have a ruler feature like this. The ruler won't, of course, appear on the web page. So let's take a look at what the HTML would look like for this. We're going to place the image map inside the header of the image. And we specify the map using the map tag, and we're giving this map the name modo-map. Now the image itself will appear inside the body of the web page, and we use an image tag just like we would for any image. So we have image and then source cafemodo.jpg and a width and a height. But we also have in the image tag useMap equals, and inside in quotes, hash modomap. Now the name used here in the image tag and the name used in the map tag must be identical, except for that hash there. So this is complete now. All we have to do is actually specify the image map. Now what the image map does is that it specifies areas of the image and then associates those areas with links. So let's look first at the cocktails section here. We start the definition of this area with the area tag. Now note that the area tag is a standalone tag. It doesn't occur in begin-end pairs. There's no /area. So we have to have a slash at the end of this tag. We say shape equals rect. Now this says that the space that we're specifying is a rectangle. Now the next thing we do is we specify the coordinates of the rectangle. Now to define a rectangle, you only need 2 points. You need the top left point and the bottom right point. And that's all you need to know. If you know where the top left is and the bottom right is, you can figure out where the other 2 points are. So although a rectangle has 4 points, we only need 2 of those to know where it is. That's because the rectangle cannot be rotated in the image. It's perfectly horizontal. So let's specify the top left point. That point is 100 pixels from the left of the image, and it's 50 pixels from the top edge of the image. So it's 100 pixels over and 50 pixels down. So this gives us 150 for that point. The bottom right corner of the rectangle is 550 pixels from the left side of the image and 160 pixels from the top edge of the image. So this point is 550 pixels over and 160 pixels down. So that's enough now to specify the area. And then the href provides the URL of where you're supposed to go if this area is clicked on. So let's look now at the second rectangle in the image map, the coffee section. The top left point of this rectangle is 385 pixels over and 25 pixels down. The bottom right corner of this rectangle is 520 pixels over and 245 pixels down. And so that gives us these coordinates. So far, the image map looks like this. We have the first rectangle take us to coffee and the second rectangle take us to cocktails. Now let's look at the Cafe Modo area. This is a circle. Now when specifying a rectangle, we needed 2 points, the top left corner and the bottom right corner. When specifying a circle, we need different information. For a circle, we need to know where the center of the circle is, and then we need to know the radius of the circle. Now the center of this circle is 100 pixels over and 100 pixels down. So this gives us the first two pieces of information. The coordinates of the center, 100, 100. The radius of this circle is about 85 pixels. So this gives us the third piece of information. So the coordinates for this circle are 100, 100, 85. So let's add this area to the image map and see how it looks. Now we have two rectangles and a circle. The food section of the image map is the most complex. This area is a polygon, and the polygon shape can be a shape with any number of sides. In this case, we've got 5 sides, which means we're going to have 5 points of the image. Now we can start with any one of those points, but once we start, we're going to work clockwise around the area shape. The first point here is 370 pixels over and 130 pixels down. The second point is 455 pixels over from the left and 185 pixels down from the top edge of the image. The third point is 420 pixels over and 290 pixels down. The fourth point on the polygon is 310 pixels over and 290 pixels down. The fifth point on the polygon is 280 pixels over and 185 pixels down from the top edge of the image. So this gives us 5 points. Now each point needs 2 numbers to specify it. The number of pixels over from the left and the number of pixels down from the top. So we have 10 numbers altogether for 5 points. A circle only uses 3 numbers. The first 2 numbers are the coordinates of the center of the circle, and the third number is the radius of the circle. And then a rectangle uses 4 numbers. It's got 2 points and 2 numbers for each point. So let's add this polygon to the image map and see what it looks like. So now all 4 areas are inside in the image map. You'll notice though that the areas intersect with each other. The Cafe Modo circle intersects with the cocktail rectangle. The coffee rectangle and the cocktails rectangle intersect, and the food polygon intersects with the cocktails and the coffee. So if we were to click in the coffee area here, just over the word coffee, we would be clicking inside both the coffee rectangle and the cocktails rectangle. But of course, we can only go to one location. So how is this resolved? Well, in an image map, some areas are going to be on top of each other. So when 2 areas intersect, the area that's on top will get priority. So in this case, the coffee is on top. The food is underneath the coffee. We can say that the Cafe Modo section is underneath the food, and then the cocktails are at the bottom. This means that if you click on an area inside in the cocktails rectangle that also intersects with one of the other areas, you won't go to the cocktails, you'll go to the link associated with that other area. So cocktails is at the bottom. Now whichever area is specified in the top of the image map, that area is in the top layer. And whichever area is specified in the bottom of the image map, in this case cocktails, that's at the bottom layer. So it's easy to remember which order they go in. But the order is important. So image maps can be used to turn ordinary images into sensitive areas with hotspots on them. And if you click on those hotspots, you can go to various pages. So that's very, very useful. But of course, you do need to get to grips with your coordinate geometry a bit, and you have to get everything right. Now, some things to remember though when you're working with image maps. The first is that you don't have to have pixel perfect accuracy. You don't have to figure out that a particular rectangle starts at pixel number 493. 490 would probably do. The cursor is fairly big and chunky. People's hands are fairly unsteady. Very few people are going to be pinpointing particular pixels in an image. The second thing to remember is that the cursor is very big and people's hands are a bit shaky. So you can't have areas that are too small. A tiny, tiny, tiny area isn't going to be much use to anyone. And then finally, when designing your image map, make sure it's kind of obvious what areas are clickable onable. I mean, if you have a picture of a green field and you have inside in that 10 different hotspots for 10 different sections of your website, all the bits of the field are looking pretty much the same. Who can tell? So in the example we used here, it's fairly obvious that there are 4 different sections. When you create your image to turn it into an image map, make sure it's obvious that there are different sections. Now, they don't have to be separated and segmented, but it does have to be clear that there are different distinct areas that can be clicked on.